So our tradition, our custom is after the practice session, we are going for a sermon or a Dhamma talk, which is based on the selected topic. Thank you, Chatu. It becomes a bit more personal now, right? So for that, can I kindly request Chatu to recite that section we are discussing now?
I'll just read. I think I'll read the whole thing anyway. And how bhikkhus does a bhikkhu abide contemplating mind as mind? Here a bhikkhu understands mind affected by lust as mind affected by lust, and mind unaffected by lust as mind unaffected by lust. He understands mind affected by hate as mind affected by hate, and mind unaffected by hate as mind unaffected by hate. He understands mind affected by delusion as mind affected by delusion, and mind unaffected by delusion as mind unaffected by delusion. He understands contracted mind as contracted mind, and distracted mind as distracted mind. He understands exalted mind as exalted mind, and unexalted mind as unexalted mind. He understands surpassed mind as surpassed mind, and unsurpassed mind as unsurpassed mind.
Okay, so this is what we are discussing, and the last two words, the surpassed mind and unsurpassed mind, and in some books, some translations, they call it supreme mind and not supreme mind as well. And I didn't look for any more translations because I'm sure they will have a different translation if I check once again another one. So I have just checked only, but what it simply says is a surpassed or supreme, when the mind is going to that stage, and if we drop from that, then it becomes unsurpassed or not supreme. So before coming on to that, if we take a bit of a summary of what we have been doing, practicing or being mindful means we actually start buying shares in the company, right? In other words, when you follow the teaching of the Buddha, you can just follow it superficially, without getting into the crust, without getting into the real essence of what the teaching is. But Buddha has said, if you follow me, the only way you can follow me is following the four foundations of mindfulness. So therefore, we are buying shares in the company of the Buddha, right? Buddha and company, and we are shareholders now. So if you don't become shareholders of Buddha and company, what happens is you will be just a servant. And if you are just a servant in the company, at the end of the week or at the end of the fortnight or at the end of the month, you will get your salary and superannuation, you go home. But when you become the shareholders, then you get the dividend of it. You get the real cream of it. And it is not just the shareholders for the sake of being shareholders. When you really practice four foundations of mindfulness, you become top shareholders in the director board, right? So we don't just receive the dividend, we receive all other perks as well. We get all those bonuses as well, those top level executives get, right? So therefore, following the teaching using four foundations of mindfulness is a very strong way to get close to the Buddha. Another simile or similar that the Blessed One has given is, if you don't follow this, you are like a shepherd. The shepherd, what he gets is, those days during Buddha's time, the shepherd gets a place to sleep and the food. He will have to look after the whole herd, right? But whereas the owner of the herd will get milk, we'll get ghee, we'll get butter, we'll get all those products that the cow is producing. Shepherd will not have that opportunity because he's just working for the parcel of rice only, right? So therefore, practicing for foundation mindfulness is something which cannot be underestimated, right? So we have not only just practice, we have learned now in the last few years or few months how these things are technically unfolding, right? And we have learned there are so many ways that you can be mindful of your body. And then when you become mindful of your body, that paves the way to open up the mind. And that paving or that way of opening the mind is coming through the feelings arising from the sensations in the body. And once you master the feelings, then you will really get into the mind, and that is where we are. That is what we are discussing at the moment. So when you get into the mind, you see these mind waves, these mind currents, these shocks that are taking place, vibrations that are taking place in the mind, are the things that have been leading to the vibrations or the sensations in the body. And that is how we have been having feelings, either pleasant or unpleasant. And to get those pleasant and unpleasant, we have our six senses, eyes, nose, etc. So this is the link. And we are now unlocking the link and getting into the code to find where actually this is stemming from, right? So in that process, when we go down and dig deep, we have found in the mind, we have this lust and not lust situation, or the greed and without greed situation. So when you have greed and when the mind opens up, it becomes a big issue, because what you are trying to do is you are trying to concentrate on your walking, or you are trying to concentrate on your breath. But whereas you have absolutely no control, you're overwhelmed with lust feelings, or some book says greediness, thoughts of the greed, and you start crying. Depending on the character, depending on the personality, some people don't get the lust or the greedy feeling or the thoughts. Instead, they may have the opposite. They may have hateful thoughts, or angry and annoyance will be there all the time. So when these things are there, Blessed One says, I have only one advice. It is an ability that your mind has. True that your mind is full of lust. True that your mind is full of hate. But the mind has not lost the ability to see them, to accept that they are there. Not that your mind is completely overtaken by that. That potential is still with you. And I have been developing that potential through the body, developing that potential through the feelings. So you are a bit of a capable man. You have a sharper mind now to get into this subtle occurrence in your system. So try and accept these lustful feelings, or hateful feelings, or greedy feelings, or angry thoughts. And when you do that, and initially you may struggle, but over time, with discussion, with continuous practice, You may see here and there small window of opportunities. Yes, when these thoughts are coming, you can be mindful of those thoughts. No matter what category it is, you are mindful of the thoughts. Or you may start labeling. When it is lustful thought, you may start labeling lust. When you have hateful feeling or hateful thought, you will label it as hate. So in that manner, you find a way to be mindful of those things. So once you are mindful of those things, what happens is you yourself observe they don't last long. So in other words, by being mindful or by labeling, what you do is you don't give a significance, you don't give a value, you don't add value to this natural phenomena. It is a natural phenomena, natural thing, natural vibration that the mind is having. Or when you cry, what happens is you give a value to it. You make it more important, right? You become part of it. Since you label it, you detach from it. So once you detach, then it loses its strength and it goes away. You experience it yourself. You have experienced that probably in your practices as well. So once they go away, then what happens is it comes to a situation where you don't have lustful feeling, you don't have hateful thought. You may start liking your object. You may start crying, oh, those days I was having peaceful and beautiful practice. Now that peace and beauty is gone. So you don't get these thoughts. Now your mind, not in fact you, the word you is wrong. The mind will be trying to find another way, to have another attachment, to have lust towards your practice, towards the object, right? And similarly, since it is not there, you may start hating the situation. So this lust and hate will take another form and might come into the scene. Once again, you do the same thing. If that is the situation, you accept that as well. These are the thoughts that are coming up. You start labeling that as well. So once you do these two, you end up with a situation where there is nothing to fight and nothing to crave, nothing to look for. So when these things are not there, you may feel it's very bored, it is very monotonous, it is very dull, right? And Buddha says this is the situation where the greed is gone and the hate is gone, and that is highest achievement in Dhamma. Although we have not achieved that in full, now you have signs of it. You have glimpses of it, right? So they call it viraga, detachment, right, is taking place now. So therefore, what happens is when that happens, some people change the teacher or find another technique or stop practice or something will happen, right? And if you continue your practice without doing any of those things, then what you do is, then what the Blessed One says is, when that boredom is there, when that dullness is there, when that monotony is there, label that as well. Accept that as well. That is why it says, without greed, he understands that there is without greed. Without hate, he understands that there is, understand that vibration in the mind. It's the other side of the mind. So once you become mindful of that as well, and since you are not building another story based on this monotony, your greed is gone, your hate is gone, or at least subsided to a great extent. So when the root is cut at the flow level, then, when the tree is cut at the flow level, at the earth level, the root is there down. So now what happens is you fall into that root where these things are stemming from. That root where the greed or the lust was stemming from, or the hate was stemming from, is the delusion, right? So once you become mindful of this monotony or the boredom, you may feel you get sucked into a very dark and unknown, unexplainable, sleepy-like situation. It is not sleep, but you get sucked in somewhere which you cannot explain, which cannot be put into the words. So the Blessed One says, that is the delusion. That is the area where you have never seen or never been, right? So when that appears, there is no chance for you to understand it. There is no chance for you to label it, because you simply get sucked. So what happens actually there is, you go beyond your what you call time dimension, you go beyond your space dimension. The space and time is there only so long as there is something to chew, only so long as there is something to bite and eat, or enjoy, or indulge in. But here, now you don't have at least thoughts to do it, right? And on the other hand, time and space will be there only when there is something to fight with or fight for. You don't have that either. So you are not part of the existence now, because you are not in that normal vibrations of the time and the space. So you get sucked into the dark area, which those scientists says dark energy, dark matter. But the simple word the Buddha is using is the delusion. So you can experience that sucking into delusion. And when you get sucked into delusion, you don't know until you come out of it. So once this happened few times, then what the teachers, what the practitioners do is, we request them to be mindful just before you get sucked in. And we let the practitioner to be familiar with entering into this situation. So he keeps trying. When he keeps trying, what happens is, in one sitting, initially you were without knowing anything for the whole 1 hour or 45 minutes, whatever. When you continue it, this starts happening twice. This starts happening 3 times. This starts happening 4 times, 5 times, and this happens more frequently. It happens more frequently means you get there and you come out more frequently, which means you are opening up into that delusion, right? So when you open up into that delusion, and you gradually start learning about it, and you start accepting it, that you are getting into delusion, because when you come out of it, you are not completely scattered. You are again coming into the object, or you come very peacefully and start practicing, irrespective of the frequency that it is happening. So once again, this delusion will vanish sometimes. You may get hateful thoughts, you may get lustful thoughts, and the delusion will go. It doesn't matter, but it goes and comes back, and you keep accepting whatever the natural thing that is happening. And when you keep on accepting, and when you are able to one day actually open yourself into actual point in which you get sucked in, at the very beginning, you completely open up into the delusion, right? When these frequencies increasing, and there will have a point, there will have a time, you will be able to mindful the moment when you get sucked in. Then you are completely open to delusion, and you are no more deluded, right? When that happens, you become a newborn, or you become, the word I am using is born again, right? Now you are a creature, you are an animal who has experienced the way to come out of the dark energy. to come out of darkness that you have never seen or the other people have never seen. So therefore, you are a born again. The same person, same man, so far as the appearance is concerned, but inside it's completely different person, right? So when that happens, some people becomes a bit slow coming out of it, right? So when is not completely getting open up into it, they open up very slowly, and such people will have contracted mind, right? I don't exactly remember what Chatu said, but another term for it, the contracted mind. And some people suddenly open up into it and they become very mindful of the things happening. And since they are all of a sudden getting open up into it, and their mind goes scattered, right? They start seeing what's happening in the world, because they can see things now, so in the mind at least, so vividly, everything is different for them, and then the mind goes scattered. And there was a similar report in the morning in the Sinhala discussion. I'm not quite Chatu was there. And she said she was giving a lot of stories, and I'm having what you call hindrances, and my mind is like scattered like coconut flower, you know, that big coconut flower, when it is hit on a rock and all the small flowers beads getting splashed all over, and my mind is like that. It's like, you know, a beehive and buzzing is going on all the time. And she was saying, and then after discussing some time, and what for me it looked like was she has opened up into it, and she is having a scattered mind, right? So when this scattered mind or the contracted mind, no matter what it is, Blessed Ones once again says it is again another facet of the mind, another shadow of the mind, another wave of the mind, right? Now you have been surfing the mind all this time with lust, without lust, with hate, without hate, delusion, no delusion. You will have to use the same paddle and ride this wave as well. If it is scattered, you accept that it is scattered. If it is not scattered, if it is contracted, accept that as contracted. And once you keep on doing that, your mind becomes getting closer and closer and closer to get into a stage where usually a normal human being can't achieve. And those are the things that we discussed last time. And what we discussed last time was exalted mind and unexalted mind. Exalted mind means you go into this because of the continuous absorption, because of the continuous observation of this mind phenomena, you get absorbed into the mind, right? When you get absorbed into the mind, we discussed 8 layers that you have in the absorption, starting from the first jhanic experience, first absorption, second absorption, third absorption, fourth, and then infinite space, and then infinite consciousness, and then nothingness, and then neither perception nor non-perception. So if I just give a quick summary of that, in the first absorption, what happens is you will completely come out of the sensual world, and you will come out of all the hindrances, and you will be left with only 5 things, which is applied thought, sustained thought, and happiness and rapture. And from all these, you will have, with those 4, you will have concentration, right? And that is the first absorption. And when it comes to the second absorption, you drop applied and sustained thought. You will have only rapture and happiness. And then in the third absorption, you even lose rapture, and you will have only happiness that the mind is feeling. And when you keep on continuing with that, you will lose the happiness as well. You will simply have concentration, right? So with all these things, you still will be having that subtle object, right? While maintaining the subtle object, only you have maybe your breath or maybe your sensation, whatever that you are feeling, the vibration that you are feeling in the body. And when you keep on observing that, when you allow that concentration to continue, then what happens is you have developed your mind to an extent to accept the fact that the materiality is something that is not so big and it is fading away, and you are happy to accept and you are ready to accept. So because of this continuous acceptance, you have been having happiness as well and unparalleled happiness as well. So because of these two, now you have the ability to get into the next step where you don't see the materiality at all. Instead, you see the shadow of materiality, or where the materiality was. In other words, you go to the space. Matter is always in the space, right? So if you take the room that you have or your house is in the space in the land, right? Similarly, anything that we have in our body is in a space. Even the breath that we are taking is not a carrot or a banana that is going inside. They are just small particles of air that are going inside. So when your concentration is so high, you start seeing not the particles of air, instead that gap between the air. So your mind goes into the gap and you see more gaps, more spaces than the particles that are there. That is what is actually happening. That is what is actually the mind is perceiving when you keep on concentrating very minutely, very closely. And no need to do that purposely. It gradually happens, and what you will simply do is just let it happen and not do anything. So once you get into the space, and you will be in the space for some time, and the only thing you know is space, and even this space becomes so familiar to you, and then your mind will not now recognize at least the space outside. It will be completely inside, and you will accept the fact. You don't even the space is not that big compared to this knowing. Knowing is a huge energy that even can be used to see the space in the matter, right? So you will be left with that energy of knowing, which we call consciousness, right? And then when you are now mindful of just the fact that you know something is happening, you don't know what it is, but you very clearly know that you know something. And when you become mindful of that knowing as well, and even the knowing fades away, like the gong, once it is rung, you will have a very loud noise, and then gradually it fades away and completely goes away, and you get sucked into an area where you can have knowing. And after that, even that knowing will go, and what you will be left with is nothingness. So there, once again, you don't know anything. When that happens, even the knowing goes, nothing is there. Are you mindful? I don't know. That's the answer, because you can't say that there is something when that happens. So what the teachers ask is, ask questions: what is happening before, what is happening after, what is happening breath, and they will be able to gauge where this person is headed. So once again, like in the case of delusion, you ask them to continue, the practice, and if that person is lucky enough, if that person is having a lot of faith, and he is trusting the teacher, and he is not trusting the technique, he will not stop practice. He will not find another teacher. He will not find another technique. Only thing he will do is he will continue the timetable. If possible, increase the timetable and do practice more, right? And when this is happening, he will be able to, once again, like in the case of delusion, he will say in one sitting, initially I had done the whole time, I didn't know anything. Now I'm able to come to a state where I know something, and then once again go into nothingness or unknown area. And this frequency keeps increasing. Once the frequency is increasing, that is an indication that that person is getting close to seeing the actual entry into this. So once you actually enter into that, once you are opened up into it, then what happens is you have some perception, right? And that perception is unexplainable. So the only way it is explained by even the Buddha is perception of neither perception nor non-perception. There is something, but I don't know, I can't say what it is. So what happens is you completely go to nothingness and then take a U-turn and come back and start seeing. Because without seeing something, without perceiving something, you can't go to liberation. If someone says, okay, if you don't see anything, then you are liberated, everyone will be liberated. You take only, I don't know how many glasses, whatever the number of glasses that you can take, you will go into nothingness very easily, right? Buddha says not that nothingness. You will go there and then take a U-turn and open up into it. Once you open up into it, from the practice, you will see a state which you know that it is there, but exactly cannot explain what it is. So this is what we discussed up to the last session. Now we are going into another area. Why we go on to another area is now this point, or up to this point, is not blessed ones. You don't like this. It's not blessed ones introduction to the world. Even when the blessed one was born, people had been there. There were teachers. They were teachers of the Blessed One. And they taught the Blessed One to get to these stages. And Blessed One got to those stages very quickly. And the only thing that those teachers had to tell the Buddha was, now I have 500 students. You take half of it, I will take half, and we will do the business separately. That was the only thing. The Blessed One said, this is not what I am looking for. I'm still having some friction within me. So I'm in search of the truth. And he gave that 250 to the teacher, and he went in search of that. And after going, he found out. And that is why you may have heard Dhammacakkappavattana Sutra, the chanting in the temple. And when they chant, there is an area when they are explaining about 4 noble truths, right? At the beginning of each noble truth, right? In other words, 8 times at the beginning and even at the end of each truth, they are using this verse, Ubbe ananussutesu dhammesu chakkum udapadi, jnanam udapadi, panya udapadi, vijja udapadi, aloko udapadi. Which means, because of this vision arose, knowledge arose, see exactly what it is. It says, vision arose, insight arose, discernment arose, knowledge arose, illumination arose within me with regard to things never heard before. Right? What is this thing that is never heard before? He was explaining the middle path. The middle path is not the self mortification or the sensual indulgence. Right? How you get to the middle path is by allowing the hindrances to appear, by allowing mind to accept whatever is happening. Let me put it this way. Before the Buddha, when you come to these 8 stages of absorption, they always kept holding the object. They never allowed the object to disappear. Therefore, when they were practicing, even today, those who practice that method, they master the way to get into it. They master the way to come out of it. Therefore, they know to ride it. But what the Blessed One did was, he did not master the way to go there or to come out. It's if you do that, it's like learning to drive, learning to climb a tree, learning to swim. Buddha is not doing that. It takes the person on board to the middle of the sea, throw it inside, throw to the water, and that person will have to struggle and find a way to swim and then come out. So that is what he did at the very outset of 4 foundations of mindfulness. He says, keep the mindfulness to the fore. You don't hold anything, but you just become aware of whatever is happening. So therefore, since he has kept on allowing this phenomena, this mentality to develop, now he has been able to let everything go, and he has been able to get into this highest absorption. And he now sees this absorption is also deteriorated, because you are not suppressing the hindrances. Hope you remember the hindrances, sensual pleasures. And sensual pleasure,
Hatred.
hatred, and there is another term, I don't get it. Ill will, that's right. Yeah. Sensual pleasure, ill will, sensual desire rather, ill will, and the delusion, and sloth and torpor, and skeptical doubts, those are the hindrances. Those hindrances, before Buddha, they were suppressed and kept down, like a ball kept underwater. But Blessed One never did that. He let the ball come up whenever it wants to come out. So, therefore, although you go to this highest jhana, the sensual desires or the ill will or hindrances will come and you will deteriorate. And when you are in the absorbed state, it is exalted mind. And before Buddha, no one went beyond that. After Buddha, it becomes unexalted mind. Because of the hindrances, you deteriorate and you may fall into the first absorption. Right? Or you may go for a party as well. It becomes but Blessed One says, this is also the nature of the mind. This is another wave of the mind. Nothing is permanent. What we look for is, once the mind is exalted, can I have a deed for it? This is now mine. I have obtained it. I will give a certificate for it. That is what we are looking for. And we have that machine, this machine, to measure that ray, this ray, and what's that machine, Chatu? There is a machine which measures alpha rays and beta wave.
MRI?
No, there is a smaller gadget. Now, this one is the most expensive one. There's a smaller gadget that you can wear on your forehead, and then they measure 16 rays that the mind is giving. And I don't know the name, but there is.
I don't know.
Yeah, in master training, this thing, they have those machines as well now, and they are measuring that. And
is it ECG?
Sort of, it's a very basic thing that you can wear on your head, on your forehead. Anyway, when mind becomes unexalted like that, Blessed One says you will have to simply accept it. Don't worry. It's the normal side. In other words, this is when the person is now gaining the ability to handle duality. Our mind is having two sides, one positive, one negative, if I may call it. What the Blessed One does is to train the mind, not to change the duality, to train the mind to ride the duality, so that you will not be affected by duality. Duality will be there, and you will be in the middle. Nobody will be able to touch you. Right? So it's a level beyond human capacity. And he's training the practitioners to reach that. So to do that, what you will have to do is not to react to any of those things and simply keep accepting, which is the hardest thing in the universe to do. Just to accept, just to be aware, just to know, right? It's impossible. We need something to do, right? And then the Blessed One says, once the mind becomes unexalted, up to this point we had discussed last time, and when the mind becomes unexalted, it is natural that you will be worried. You will be having a bitter and sour mind. You may be smiling and laughing outside, but inside, I have been practicing for such a long time. Still that S word and all that inside is going on. And you are not smiling, right? So, Blessed One says, that is natural. And he says, what's the word he says? It is not surpassed. It is not supreme. When this happens, it is not supreme. When it is not supreme, when it is not surpassed, accept that. Don't worry about it. It's another higher wave, a stronger wave of the mind. You have now ridden 5 waves. This is the next one, like Corona. Now it has gone to Delta, right? Next time we will have Gunasiri, right? You know, Delta was a toffee we were eating when we were small, and there was a post somewhere in the Facebook. We never knew Delta will come to eat us. We have been eating Delta all this time. Now the Delta has come to eat us. And someone had written, the next wave is Gunasiri Bulto. Right, anyway. So, when the mind becomes unsurpassed, Blessed One says, okay, simply accept that. If you accept the unsurpassed mind, you are not deterred by the loss of the most effective, most determined gain that you have gained in your life. You are not affected even by that. You have achieved your 8th absorption or whatever absorption you are in, giving up your family, giving up your profession, giving up all that in that particular moment, not completely, in that particular moment. And you sacrifice those things to achieve this. And even that is gone now. And because of that, you have a bitter mind. You accept that bitter mind. So you are not affected by that, even that. And when that happens, that bitter mind comes to show you or to test you whether you can face the next exam. And if you face it without changing the teacher once again, without changing the technique, without changing your practicing session, if you continue your timetable, no matter what happens in your mind, then you are gradually coming out of that bitterness. Your mind becomes even stronger. It is not like now an iron, it's like a rubber. You can bend it, but won't break. If it is like an iron, it is hard to bend, but still it is breakable. Right? So I'm not saying rubber is not breakable, but it is so flexible now, not affected by the waves on either side. Right? So such a mind, once you ride that unsurpassed wave, such a mind is known as supreme mind or the surpassed mind. So you have this unexalted mind to check whether you become bitter. If you become bitter, and that is the next exam to go to the next level, which is the surpassed mind. So when you have a surpassed mind, then you will not see many differences in the world, right? So it is thus natural to stay very neutral, very natural to stay without any taste, and outsiders will see that this person has lost some wires, or there is some wrong connection in his brain, because he's not affected by the things that are happening. I remember when I was watching matches those days, and when Sri Lanka is taking a catch or hitting a six, the two kids on the sides, they get elated and they start clapping and shouting, and they're shouting at me. What are you doing? Are you watching? Are you watching the match, or are you even meditating here? So like that, outsiders will not understand, and your mind, this becomes very strong mind servicing. So no matter what the wave of the mind is, you ride it instead of getting caught up in it. So when the surpassed mind happens, that unwavering acceptance makes your mind even more stronger, and that becomes, by this time, the mind is neutral, that it doesn't recognize good and bad. It doesn't recognize right and wrong. It is so it loses the ability to discriminate. It loses the ability to differentiate, right? So which to the outside world is a disease. It's a mental disease. When you don't see the difference between man and the woman, and the good and the bad, it's a huge problem. Undeveloped mind. But so far as the Blessed One is concerned, if you can get to that childlike mind, not childish mind, childlike mind, you're not affected by it. That is why the small kids, they jump up and down. Not just because they are hypo. they are not affected by things. And we also become hypo when our mind is not affected by rubbish. Right? So therefore, I remember once the Bhante Ajahn Brahm was saying why he did not ordain in Sri Lanka. When you go to Sri Lanka, all the monks are like this. They don't know how to smile. They don't laugh. And the monkhood is not showing face or unsmiling. I know, of course, monks are not laughing out so loud, but they must have a very pleasant way of looking at things. They should be happy. When they are happy, they should naturally have laughter. Otherwise, you are in a prison. You don't enjoy it, right? So he said, this is why I did not ordain in Sri Lanka, but in Thailand it was different. Ajahn Chah was laughing for everything, right? So that happens because although monks are not supposed to laugh out loud, they don't see why not, why we should stay without laughing, right? And similarly, there was a situation where monks are not supposed to look at dancing women, right? But one monk watched. While watching, he attained arahantship because he has the ability to see what nonsense is going on. He doesn't see good and bad. Discrimination is gone. What he simply sees is because of that surpassed level of the mind, he will not only, the person affected by it says, don't look at it so bad. but for the monk, there is nothing bad. It's all rubbish from the beginning to the end, right? He doesn't see, because when you have a surpassed mind. And in Zen Buddhism, there is a saying, when you have such a mind, you are fit to go on the red carpet with royals, and at the same time, you are sitting on the bench in your local coffee shop chatting to the village farm. You don't see the difference between the two people. After all, human beings, we eat, we defecate. And whatever that the food is generating within us will maintain our body. That's all. That's all. And everything else, man-made. So his mind doesn't see that difference because it is surpassed. He has come out of this unwanted currents and ways the mind is creating. He keeps going, not over. There are two more to go. And this is why, if I don't know what the time is now, whatever it is, this is why there is a nice story during Buddha's time. There was a prostitute, who is not just a prostitute. She was a high class one, and customers were all royal princes and that level people. And this woman came to the Blessed One, and she said, I want to give you some food, offer dana. Blessed One says, okay. And then the same day, Blessed One did not chase that woman away. You came here spoiling my sacred place. Get out of this place. He did not shout. Because it's another person, another follower coming to worship the Blessed One and offer some food. And on the same day, a prince came and said, and so date, I want to give you food. And Blessed One straight away said, no, I have accepted from so and so. And what happens if that happens today? That one will be immediately cancelled and prince will be given the opportunity. Blessed One did not do that. He doesn't care whether it's a royal prince or a prostitute, so long as he gets food. And there is no value, additional value, so far as the Blessed One is concerned. His mind has gone beyond those unwanted recognitions. And similarly, in the case of, there is another story called Punna, servant, and she was a servant, and Blessed One wanted to after rain retreats, he wanted to start walking again and preaching. And those who had given him accommodation and could look after him during the rainy season, they wanted the Blessed One to stay. They were the top royals, king of the area, and the rich man, Bimbisara, Anathapindika, and all those people. Blessed One says, no, I'm sorry. We have given you guys 3 months and I am staying here most of the time. I want to go. And he never budged. But everyone, when this happened, everyone was not happy. King was not eating, and Anathapindika was so upset. Nothing was happening in the palace properly. Nothing was happening in the kingdom properly. And then this little girl observed all these things and asked their parents, what's going on in this area? And then she has been scolded, and somehow or other she has forced the parent to say what it is. And then after hearing that, she said, I will go and talk to the Blessed One. And then she has been blasted once again, but somehow or other, she has approached Anathapindikasa, and with Anathapindikasa, Blessed One has given the opportunity to see. And then she went and said, Bhante, I don't know what's going on, and these people are not eating and drinking. Whatever it is, I don't care. But I have received a promise from them. If I am able to ask you to stay, I will be relieved from the servant. And if I am relieved from this work in this palace, I am telling you that I will observe 8% throughout my life. Blessed One says, okay, I will stay. It's an opportunity for that little girl to observe 8%. And all this time, all the kings and royals that have been looking after him, not just 3 months, most of the time, if you read suttas, Anathapindika says so and so, so and so, so and so. Yes, those people have been looking after him so much, but he did not listen to them. But when this little girl said, who has no connection, he accepted, because the other people wanted Blessed One to stay because they want to hang around and have a bit of chatting and have their recognition because of the Blessed. But this little girl is not for that. She is trying to practice Dhamma. Like that, when the mind is surpassed, you don't see this difference. So that is what what do you call unexalted. That is what unexalted mind does. Unexalted, when the mind is slipping from the absorption, you will be bitter. And if you keep observing this bitterness, your mind becomes stronger and you will not be affected by even the loss of most important gain that you have made. Becomes even stronger. So with that, I'm going to conclude with this phrase that is in the numerical discourse. It says, therefore, the nature of the mind, the luminous monks, is the mind, and it is defiled by incoming defilement. So we will see how we get to this luminous mind gradually with the next wave of the mind after possibly 2 weeks, if that is not the Poya day in the temple. So may you have all the strength to reach that luminous mind. Thiruvan Saranai. Okay, now it's time for questions. We would like to see Hansi's face at least now, provided you have washed your face for the day. All right, so any discussion points?
If Aki doesn't have any questions, I'll ask one. Last time I asked a question, it was in my last report, and it was about what was happening with getting absorbed, I guess. So there's 3 things. So one is, it's about the space, sorry. So one situation, doesn't matter. I'll just say it's sitting. Walking can be a little bit different, but let's just say sitting. I see the space and there's a distance between me and the space. So like I'm like observing the space from a distance. The second one is I merge with the space. And the third one was the part that I didn't know. And so the answer, or so the feedback you gave was, and these are happening randomly. The feedback you gave was find the logical steps for what's happening. See if there's any patterns or like, is it happening logically? So that's what I was doing. And so this is my findings, I guess, in my report. So yeah, generally, if there'll be cases where I can see a distance between me and the space, and then after some time, I can merge with the space. And when I say merge, the way it could happen in two ways. I feel like my head or my body is just getting sucked into something, or the distance between me and the space gets really, really close until they're the same. And the last one was the place that I didn't know. So I don't think it's a case that I don't know. I think what happens is I'm like, the first two steps are like in sequence steps. The third one, which I don't know, is I'm already in the space. So like there's no lead up. So, and because there's no lead up, I don't see the distance and then merging. And when I'm already in the space, I can't actually verify that it's happening, which is why I say I don't know. So that's what I think actually happens is there can be logical steps from going into the space, and then I just start in the space and then I can't verify. So I guess my question is that actually what happens when if you're in the space, can it be really, like if you merge with the space, can it be really hard to verify that you're actually there because you don't see the lead up steps?
The first thing I want to ask is, when you started observing the space, when did you start observing the state? I'm talking about the first time. When you were in space, or when it was coming close, or when you were merging. You gave three scenarios. Of the three scenarios, the last one was when you are already merged. So what was your first observation?
I think I must have, because I was trying to do the sequence or trying to see the sequence, I saw the distance between the space, me and the space, like there's like, so two things. That's the first one, because yeah, that's what I first observed in the sequence, I guess.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about the current sequence observation. When you first noticed that something like this is happening, were you in it, or was it coming from distance?
You mean like the very first time I went to the space? Yeah, okay. Okay, so this happened many years ago. So it was on a retreat. It was during retreat, and I was observing the breath, and the out breath disappeared. And when it disappeared, like it got subtle, and then it disappeared, and then I felt like I was dying, and I was like trying to breathe in as hard as possible. And that went on for some period of time. And what actually happened was I went to some thoughts. I got like distracted by thoughts, and I came back from the thoughts, and both breaths were disappeared. That's the very first time it happened. And so, after that, yeah.
Yeah. So are you saying you observed this only when you are sucked into it?
No, I don't think I was sucked. It was a very long time ago. I don't remember if I was sucked in. Probably not. I would say probably not, because I could observe what was happening.
Yeah, because with the details that you are providing, I cannot come out with a conclusive reply. But I would say this: natural occurrences, in observation. First time when you observe, you are in it. right? Say, for example, if you take the analogy of breath, right? You observe your breath only when you are able to perceive the breath. You can perceive the breath only when the breath has gone in and when you really see it. But breath has started long time ago. Only thing is you have not been able to perceive. So but when you keep on observing it, then you see, okay, there is an ability for you to see breath even earlier. There is an ability for you to see breath even earlier. And then you go to the very beginning of it, right? So like that, if that is the normal sequence, that is how it usually happens. You first see the middle, and then you start seeing the beginning, right? So the three scenarios that you're explaining is, maybe although you don't remember, first time you notice this, that there is something called space, once you have fallen into the space. And then you start questioning, you start rationalizing it, you start understanding it. And then when you keep on practicing, then you start seeing the beginning. That is how now you say, you can see it is coming from far, and then it is coming closer and things like that. And then once that happens, then you are able to see merging as well, right? So which means now you start seeing the beginning of it, right? This is how it happens actually, but it is very hard for the practitioner to see the real sequence of happening. You first start seeing the gross part, which is once you are in, right? And then when you keep on practicing, that is what I was explaining regarding the delusion. So after you are sucked in, you are in, then only you know that there is something like this is happening. And then when you keep on repeating it, then you start seeing the beginning, right? So that is happening now. So once you do this, once you continue this practice, after the beginning is mastered, right, then you will start seeing how this disappears as well. That side is yet to open up. So don't worry about it. There is a sequence, but that sequence is not the sequence that we think is the sequence. It is the sequence that the mind is reading as perception. Does it make sense?
Yes. But I still do have like a question. It's like this unknown area, like I'll be there. And I can't verify like for sure that I'm in this space. Like I can't like, yeah, that's my issue. It's like I'm not sure if that is actually the space.
Yeah, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether it is, you have been using the word space. So therefore, we have to go by it, saying space. If now you don't know whether it is space, that's good. Keep on observing and give more information, and then we will see what it is. That is how it evolves. And we did not start practicing to reach space. We just sat and start observing our body. And the bus is taking us somewhere we don't know. And initially we thought, okay, we are passing candy. Now it looks like it is not candy. It's a journey. Every minute that you practice, every minute that you pass when you are mindful, your mind is working, your mind is improving, right? You are getting used to what you have gained, right? So therefore, it's a journey. You will not stop in one place. You have so precisely, so nicely gave the factors leading to space the other day. And now you are saying, no, I don't know whether it is space. I accept that because it is an evolution. There is nothing fixed, and that That permanent notion in the mind is only trying to hold things, but actually we can't hold anything. So keep on observing. Don't expect, don't think that space will come out. You just go with an open mind. Whatever that comes out, doesn't matter. I just observe. Are you happy or still have a question? No problem. You can ask another question.
No, thank you, Ham. Today, I need to do some observations. Thank you.
Yeah. Everyone, Sadhana. Do you have anything, Hansika?
No, Hamdrune, I'm all good today.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for joining as well. So if we don't have questions, we can conclude the session. And to conclude the session, we will chant our usual stanzas to pass these vibrations that we have gained, positive energies that we have gained, to all the beings who can absorb those energies. We'll chant the usual traditional stanzas.